Hi, this is Marek from Tryb Solo, and today I'd like to show you an expansion for Imperial Settlers, Empires of the North. The expansion is called Wrath of the Lighthouse. Thanks Portal Games for sending it for review. And this is a quite unique expansion because this is a story-driven, solo-only campaign for a Euro game, Empires of the North. And this is very, very unique. All the other expansions for this game introduce new factions and new clans that you could play, but this one is about a campaign. You need to have the base game for it, and also you need to know how to play the base game. But if you played Empires of the North, especially the solo scenarios that were included in the base game, you will know more or less how to play Wrath of the Lighthouse. In this game you are sent by the Emperor to a foreign land, and the ruler of the land passed away not long time ago, and you have to replace him and rebuild the village. But also you will have to deal with myth and folklore and the evil lighthouse. And this is quite fun. There are 15 scenarios included. You will not see all of the scenarios during one campaign because you have branching paths. So sometimes, depending on your choice or depending on the outcome of previous scenarios, you will be sent to one or the other scenario here. Of course, the campaign is replayable. This is not a legacy campaign, so you can play it once with one faction and then choose another faction and play it again. Now I will show you what you will find inside this box. I will tell you a little how it plays. No spoilers or just minor spoilers. I will just show you the components and how the game looks like when it's set up on the table, and then we'll come back here and I will tell you my opinion on this expansion. So this is the first scenario of Wrath of the Lighthouse. Not the beginning of it, but the end of it. And I would like to tell you a little about this expansion and show you some components that you will find inside the box. I don't want to spoil any story. This is the first scenario, the introductory scenario that you will play when you start the campaign. I hope you know how to play Empires of the North. I don't want to focus on rules of the base game, but in case if you haven't played it or if you played it a long time ago and you don't remember, Empires of the North is a civilization card game where you will build tableau that contains different cards. You have different asymmetric clans, and each clan has its own deck with different cards. You have some farm cards that you will be able to harvest. You have some action cards that you will be able to place on your table, some instant cards that can be played during different moments of the game. And basically you will get cards from your deck, you will build different cards, use different actions. There is this action wheel here, and you have 5 different actions. You can construct different buildings, you can harvest different fields, you can sail. Here are some islands that you can visit with your ships. You can pillage the islands or conquer the island. If you pillage, you gain resources. If you conquer, you can use these islands just like other cards in your tableau. You can explore it, basically drawing new cards, or you can populate to gain new workers, and then you will assign the workers to different cards to perform different actions. There are resources in this game. You have ships, fishes, apples, wood and stone. The resources are used for different things, basically for building different cards, but also for performing different actions. So this is very briefly how Empires of the North play. If you play competitively, you play against other players, but if you play solo, in the base game you had 4 different scenarios, and you have only 4 rounds to score the given number of points. Each scenario has got different number of points that you have to achieve, and then you can compare how well you played. So you don't have much time to gain victory points. Here you have a special board where you track your victory points. And the Wrath of the Lighthouse took the idea from the base game, but you had different scenarios, and made a campaign out of it. You get this booklet that is called a scenario book. And here you have different scenarios that you will play. You will not play all these scenarios shown in this booklet because there are some branching paths. So sometimes, depending on the outcome of one scenario, you will be directed to this scenario or other scenario. So you will not see all the scenarios during one gameplay. But each scenario has some setup changes, some rules changes, some scoring changes, and it tells you what to do when the game ends. You also get some special actions that you will be able to perform apart from the actions from your tableau. And there are also some events, and at the beginning of each round, when there is this lookout phase, you have to draw one of these numbered tokens randomly. I personally use a D6 dice, and you will get different random events, and the events will first tell you some story elements of this game, of this expansion, but also they will sometimes give you some resources, or you will have to pay some resources depending on the scenario. And apart from the scenario book, you have this rule book. It tells you what components you have here, how you can track your progress, because you have this progress sheet here. I will show it to you in a second. But the rulebook also contains the tail sections, and you have a lot of story entries in the rulebook. So it reminds me of some, adventure story-driven games where you have to read a specific entry in a scenario book to get new story, new options, some resources and stuff. And it works similarly here. If some events in the scenario tell you to read a specific entry, you have to open the rulebook, read a specific entry, and sometimes you have an option like here, for example, it's an example option that you may spend some resources to gain victory points, or you will gain something on your progress track. And this is how it works. After you finish, you will read a specific ending in the rulebook, and it will tell you what is the next scenario that you will be able to play. You also get this progress sheet where you write the name of the clan that you chosen to play, because you have to pick one clan for the whole campaign and play it. And then you can write outcome of the scenario if you won or lose. Some you can call it experience points, crop event deck, naval event deck, some setup changes that you will use in following scenarios, some changes in number of workers, because you get also some story specific green workers here. You have a special deck of cards. I will not show you all the cards, but basically these cards are some naval event cards that you will use when you sail. You will build this deck of cards in future scenarios, and then you will use these cards when you will sail to conquer or to pillage different islands. You have some crop event cards, and these cards will be used when you harvest, so you will use naval cards when you sail, and crop cards when you harvest. They have some, random events that will happen during the game. You have some additional, locations that will be used, but all the changes in setup are always written in the scenario book, and the scenario book will always tell you which cards you should use, which tokens you should use, because you get also some additional tokens in this game that will be used in different scenarios. I'm not really sure what they are used for, because I am not as far in the story to use all these tokens. But you still have only 4 rounds to finish every scenario, and then depending on the score, you will read the specific entry in the rulebook. So this is more or less how the game plays. Most of the rules stays the same. You have to know how to play Empires of the North, the base game. You have to know how to play Empires of the North solo, because the rulebook in this expansion doesn't teach you how to play in the base game or the solo base game. You have to know how to play it, and then you will use the scenario booklet to make any changes to the gameplay according to a specific scenario. So thanks, and so let's go to the summary. Releasing this expansion was a very brave decision. First, because this is a campaign expansion for a Euro game. This is not a common thing, and also because this is a solo-only expansion. I'm playing mostly solo, so I'm very happy that they release Wrath of the Lighthouse. Especially because Euro games for me get repetitive after time, because every game looks more or less the same. Okay, maybe sometimes you have different factions, or you can try to beat your own score, or you can try to beat Automa, but in most Euro games you are doing the same things over and over again every time you play the game. And thanks to the campaign, every scenario is a little different, because the core is, of course, Empires of the North. You have your deck of cards, you have your tableau, you will play cards, you will harvest fields, you will sail, and pillage islands and do the regular things that you normally do in Empires of the North. But also every scenario introduces some cool events, some special actions, and some gameplay mechanics that are unique and different. For example, in the first scenario, some of the locations are, you can say damage, and you have to restore them, because otherwise you will have to use more workers to perform actions from these locations. In the second scenario, there is a thief, and the thief steals your resources, and you have to catch the thief. So it's really fun and unique, and every new scenario you play, you will have some different elements and some cool ideas for your game. I also like the fact that there is some story in here, because in the rulebook you have this whole section called Tales, and during the game, in a specific moment, sometimes when you do some specific actions or there are some specific events at the beginning of each turn, you have to read some specific fragment of the story from the Book of Tales, and you get some, funny story elements and some funny stories that really fit the Empires of the North sense of humor, because this game is really fun, especially when you look at the illustrations on all the cards, and the story here is also quite fun. Of course, in the end you will get some resources or pay some resources, or you will unlock some actions, but having a story that you are able to read is really fun. Also, another cool thing is that you don't have to win every scenario, because even if you lose a scenario, you don't have to repeat it over and over again, but the story moves forward. Just you will receive different rewards, maybe sometimes no rewards for losing, sometimes depending if you win or lose, you will play different scenarios afterwards. But the cool thing is that you can play next scenarios without having to repeat the previous one. So this is really fun and unique campaign. As I said before, you can replay it. There are no legacy elements. You can choose different factions for your next campaign, because here you have to choose a faction at the start of the campaign, and you have to play through the whole campaign with the same faction that you choose at the beginning. You cannot choose factions during the campaign, but you can play it again with different factions, and I think it will be fun, because there are some elements here, like you have the naval events or harvest events, crop events that trigger during different actions in the game. And for example, if you have a faction that sails a lot and uses ships and uses ships to pillage or conquer islands, then you will use the naval deck more often. If you have a faction that is more focused on harvesting fields, then you will use the crop event deck more often. So depending on your faction, you will have a different feeling how the game plays. This is really cool. Visit me on Instagram, visit me on Facebook, visit me on Twitter. You will find links in the description of this video, and tell me if you like Empires of the North, or if you played this game solo or not. Hit the like button if you like this video, and subscribe to my channel as well. And thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.